Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Updates from the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners on January 17, 2023. Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair Smith. We're going to start with the Housing Authority. Chair, if you'd please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
Joining you on Zoom, Commissioners, is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Ann, good morning. Are you there?
She is connected.
All right. Commissioner Leenstra, can you hear us now? Okay, she is there. Her microphone is not on, but I'm sure it will be shortly. This is Housing Authority of Clackamas County, request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a financial assistance application for the Family Unification Voucher Program from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The anticipated grant award is $370,000. Funding through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Tony Carter, Executive Director of the Housing Authority. Go ahead, please.
The Housing Authority is seeking approval from the board to apply for a Family Unification Program grant. It would be vouchers, approximately 30 of them. The vouchers are only designated to serve families getting unified out of foster care, so mothers and children who are getting united, or they're for graduating foster care who don't have housing options after they graduate out of foster care.
Very nice. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
All right, thank you. Chair, would you please now convene as Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and convene as a Water Environment Services.
These are requests for consent agenda for Water Environment Services Board. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of West Linn for Mapleton Pump Station by Oxide Dosing. Agreement value is $75,000 for 4.5 years. Funding is through the Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geis, Director of Water Environment Services, and Jeff, I forgot your last name, sorry.
Stallard,
Jeff Stallard, in your role, please.
Capital Program Manager for Water Environment
Thank
Services.
you. I'll have it down next. I won't forget again. Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. This first one is really I guess, feel-good or success. Good example of West staff working with the City of West Linn staff to find solutions to problems that don't necessarily reflect jurisdictional boundaries. So our Bolton Pump Station is downstream from Mapleton Pump Station, and we're actively rehabilitating that pump station. Part of the work that we did identified issues with gases, hydrogen sulfide type gases that are generated upstream that cause corrosion to that facility and also odors to the surrounding community. So we worked through the technical advisory team with West Linn and identified Mapleton, their pump station upstream, as a good site to inject this, what we call bioxide, that reduces that gas and the corrosion and the associated odors at their facility. And they graciously agreed to let us utilize their site for that activity, at least for the next 5 years. And we're excited to do it and thankful for West Linn staff and council.
Questions or comments on this item?
Yeah, I have a question. It sounds like a great project. Don't have any quarrel with it per se. Just have a couple questions. One is that is the pump station property of Tri-Cities, formerly West, or was the property of West Linn? And if it is not the property of West Linn, then why do we need West Linn's agreement?
It is property of West Linn. So it's their Mapleton pump station.
Okay, so this is something that is a shared cost or a new cost? Because I know there's this separation, right? They're contract cities, really, right?
Right.
So are they going to help pay for this?
No. This facility will have benefits downstream at our facility. It doesn't really benefit the city. They're just the host.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schrader.
I just want to thank you for this. This is a really good project. I've been following it, and, 2 thumbs up with this.
Yeah, it's great when we can work with the city across boundaries for
Yeah.
mutual benefit.
Well, it's all about watersheds, and there are no boundaries with watersheds.
Right.
So thanks for that, guys.
Nope, seeing no objections going forward.
Item 2, approval of a construction contract with McClure and Sons for the Tri-City Water Resource Recovery Facility Primary Clarifier Rehabilitation Project. Contract value is $5 $1,424,730 for 3.25 years. Funding is through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved.
I guess I'll start and Jeff can take it off. So we've got 6 what we call primary clarifiers. They all need to be rehabilitated. We're starting with basins 1 and 2, and this would be a 3-phase contract over the next, well, through 2025 ultimately, but we're doing the first 2 to see how it goes. And we have some strategies around mitigating risk of inflation that maybe Jeff wants to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, with the construction environment being pretty volatile, we chose to include the future 4 basins in this pricing. We got a price from the contractor, and we've tied that price to a construction cost index so that if it goes up, we pay what it goes up in our future amendments. If it were to go down, which doesn't typically happen, we would then reduce some money, but they gave us a baseline cost that will be adjusted based on that construction cost index, which is a engineering news record. They look at construction across the Pacific Northwest to develop that number. So we didn't want the contractor to price in a bunch of risk, assume an 8 or 10% inflation, and then have it come back that it was only 3. And so we're just trying to hedge our bets a little bit while keeping the contractor's risks reasonable.
The sanitary sewer construction fund, is that part of the bond that was sold earlier?
That money goes into that fund, yes.
And what other monies go into your construction fund?
Well, periodically, we'll move money from our into the construction fund based on rates and.
On rates.
And SDCs, yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just so we're going to do 4 of the 6?
The plan is to do all 6.
All
There'll be
6.
2 this year. We can only have, we typically can have 2, maybe 3 out of service during the wet and during the dry season in the summer. So we'll do 2 a year for the next 3 years.
Okay, so this $5 million covers all 6?
Covers the first 2 and equipment for all 6. And then the future 2 numbers will amend on a yearly basis to cover the next 2, construction for the next 2.
So it could be north of $10 million for, or more. Wait,
Total contract was, the total value was just right around 12 million for all 6 basins.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. See no objections.
Thank you.
All right, Chair, would you now convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the Water Environment Services and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next is consent agenda request for the Board of County Commissioners. Is there anyone in this room from Human Resources? All right, we'll skip that item for now. We'll move on to County Administration. Item 1, approval of a funding agreement with the Regional Arts and Culture Council for funding and services to artists and arts organizations in Clackamas County. The agreement value is $62,000 for 1 year. Funding is through county lottery dollars. No county general funds are involved. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer. So these dollars, the $62,000, are for artists in the region here in Clackamas County, as well as some educational programs at our schools. And you, as the BCC, approved this from our lottery dollars back in, it looks like September.
Okay, any questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, so we have not given money, my understanding, to the Regional Arts and Culture Council. Am I correct, Gary? But the broader regional one north of us. We're giving this to the Clackamas.
No, this is RAC. This is the regional
RAC.
one.
This is RAC.
This
Okay,
is the
that's what I
regional
just
one.
wanted to clarify. So
Yes.
we have dedicated funding to them. Great.
Yeah,
I'm
and
getting
it says
questions.
$62,000 from the lottery dollars, which on September 20th, you all agreed to,
Right. And
approved.
thank you for that. But we're also giving money to the local, we did give money to the local.
Yes, we did,
organization as well.
to the Clackamas, yes, Arts Council.
Oh, great, yes,
ma'am.
yeah, just trying to get them all straight in my head.
I understand.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so I remember I'll call it a kerfuffle, but what is the total amount that we obligated in September? And is this in addition to that?
This is what we obligated in September, the $62,000.
Total.
That's, yes, that is correct.
And so this includes there's no direct payment to RACC?
This is the direct
That
payment.
is it? Okay.
Yes,
All right. Just want to make it perfectly clear. Thanyou.
yes.
Thank you, Nancy. Any further questions? Seeing no objections.
All right, thank you.
Next, Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of a board order vacating a portion of Hemlock Drive, a local access road. Vacation fee is $1,139.18. Funding is through the petitioner. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith. Commissioners, for Commissioner West's benefit, just briefly, we, as a county, take our rights of way for our roads as an easement, unlike cities in a lot of cases. A lot of cities take a fee title. We take a public easement in those cases. Before you today is a request to vacate one. I want to hearken back to 1925, when this was dedicated through a plat for some reason. Who knows? It's unimproved. It's an unimproved local access road. It's about 5,000 square feet in size, about 40 feet long, about 122 feet in length. Essentially, we have a request to vacate that, submitted by a certain number of petitioners, adjoining property owners, essentially who have been consolidating property in the area to develop it. When we receive these requests, we forward those out to interested parties, utilities, things of that nature, make sure there's no issues there. We look at them internally. This particular request, we have found no issue and no public benefit to retain this right-of-way. The petitioners have paid the appropriate fee, the $1,139.18, and basically, we would propose this go forward pursuant to Oregon revised statute regarding vacations.
Thank you very much. Since this was done in 1925, you weren't even born then, so you have no responsibility
I
on
would
it.
never assume that. I just was hearkening back.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Dan, so the
I'm talking too much.
$175,000 cost for 1.5 years, what's that for? Am I looking at the right one?
No.
No?
Well,
I'm
it's
sorry.
basically, the petitioning costs are $1,135, and
Okay,
that's
that's the
just,
total cost.
that's the cost they paid us to process the
We
request.
have no cost.
Correct.
Okay, I'm on the same sheet of music
Yep.
with you now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, so Dan, do we have a program that if we fix a road, that a city can then annex it and we give it away forever? Don't we have something like that available?
We proactively, well, that's not this road, make sure we're
No, I
clear.
know it's not this road,
But
but I'm getting calls from Lake Oswego about potholes, and evidently it's
when
county
we are
property. and I'm
required
like,
per a number of our urban growth management agreements
Yeah,
that we
okay.
have, so basically, those are the agreements that we have with our partnering cities that say how we're going to partner in those areas that are going to go into the city at a future point in time. Those agreements basically stipulate a minimum standard for the roadway in which that roadway needs to be before it can be transferred, or we can do a fee, kind of a fee in lieu of, pay them a dollar amount and they'll take the road. We are pretty proactive when we go out there and do capital projects in the unincorporated area that are going to be in a city to transfer those roads. But I would say that's about the only area that we're generally active in, unless the city comes to us and they say they want to transfer a road. We have some cities that take us up on that quite a bit.
Yeah,
You know, Wilsonville takes us up on that, Canby, Happy Valley, things of that nature, and some less, so.
Okay,
But if they
so-
have a road they're interested in, I'd have them contact us, and we can.
I would like to do that because I made not the mistake, but I testified in front of the city council over a flooding issue in my neighborhood, and now I keep telling people I'm the commissioner, I'm not a city councilor. But I was very careful to let my colleagues know that, they have priorities too, and how do we do this? But I'm just trying to figure out how I can get them to contact you and see if there's anything that can be done with this one road.
Mike Besner from our shop is kind of leading those
Okay.
discussions with the city, so if they have specific interest, I'd have them contact them
Okay.
directly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Seeing no objections to this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment increasing funding and duration of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Fire District Number 1 for COVID support. The amendment value is $25,000 for 6 months. The agreement value is increased to $175,000 for 1.5 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Hello, Commissioners. Yes, we have an IGA, intergovernmental agreement with Fire District Number 1 for the administration of COVID vaccines. We request to continue testing and distributing the vaccine and extend the partnership for another 6 months with this grant, or this contract, I should say.
What kind of outreach is doing? what kind of outreach is being conducted?
This particular, it's a person in the fire district, and she's working with homeless shelters and others. So I don't know if there's a campaign or anything going on right now, but basically the fire district comes in contact with folks who are coming into all the different systems, and so that's where we're making the connections. But I can get more information if you want on specifically how that's happening.
So vaccines are offered but not mandated.
Say that again.
Vaccines are offered but not mandated when they're
Exactly.
in contact with these people.
Yes.
I would like to know what the questions are. Would you like a vaccine? I was just curious on that
Okay,
since this is a county program. Commissioner West?
Chair, I share your same concerns. I'd like to know how these residents are addressed or questioned and what that process is before they're advised to be vaccinated. How many people are served by this program, and how many vaccines are actually happening at this time? Is there really a major need where people are having a hard time getting access, and is this the best use of resources for our first responders right now? And I think that's another question that I have.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions on this particular item? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Are all those answers possible by Thursday?
I believe so. Some of them, we got the thumbs up from behind, so
To the answers
we're
before
on it.
Thursday? Thank you. Item 2, approval of a financial assistance application for a continuation grant from Oregon Department of Transportation for operations funding of the Mount Hood Express. The anticipated grant value is $1,136,696 for 2 years, with a match of $426,205. Funding is federal pass-through grant funds, state funds, and private funds. No county general funds are involved. Who's paying the match, though? Where's the match coming from, Rob?
Matches from state funds, there's state tax funds, and other transportation funds we get it from. Timberline and Skibo also put money towards, because we're in partnership with them, so that's where the match funds are coming from.
Great. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. We'll move back to Human Resources. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a contract with Cascade Centers doing business as Canopy Wellbeing for the Employee Assistance Program services. The amendment value is $204,970 for 2 years. Contract value is increased to $419,970 for 4.5 years. Funding is through contributions and fees paid for by county departments, retirees, COBRA beneficiaries, and other agencies contracting with Clackamas County for Employee Benefits Administration. This does include $59,441 in budgeted county general funds. Christy Durham is the Benefits Manager in Human Resources. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to just bring this before you. This is the current contract that we have with the county's Employee Assistance Program, and this is time to amend the contract. The services have been well received. The vendor has provided excellent service over the period of time that they've been serving us, and so we're requesting to extend through an amendment process. So this is adding additional dollars to continue delivering those services. The Employee Assistance Program is a concierge type of benefit. It provides employees with a wealth of resources for their own lives. There's some additional counseling and other resources, as well as support for supervisors and managers. We use them when there is a critical circumstance, maybe a death in a department or some other challenging situation. We're able to mobilize that resource, bring them into the workforce, and provide meaningful support to the workforce to help them get back to the work at hand. So that's the nature of this request in front of you today. I'm happy to answer any more questions beyond this. Just wanted to give a little bit of that context for this request.
Questions or comments for the presenter? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting consent agenda. Thank you. Next, that's good, Christy, thank you. Next, Metro Exposition and Recreation Committee, MERC appointment. Caroline Hill from County Administration will present. There was a memo in your packet.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. I'm Caroline Hill, Policy Advisor, here today to talk about the Metropolitan Exposition and Recreation Commission, or MERC, appointments. Merck's role is to protect the public investments of Metro's visitor venues such as the Convention Center, the Expo Center, and the Portland Centers for the Arts. I'm here today because Clackamas County representative resigned back in December. Since then, staff has been working on the recruitment process. We received 2 letters of interest, one from David Pendleton and one from Renee King. Their information was included in the packet. I respectfully request that the board select a Clackamas County representative for Merck.
Thank you. The reason for this, because we filled this vacancy a while back, John Erickson, correct, held the vacancy. He had to resign for health reasons, and maybe, folks, you got an email saying he had since passed. And it was very emotional, and the family sent out an email saying he really enjoyed working with Clackamas County on a representative to Merck. If we're not familiar, this is somewhat of a tourism entertainment type of position representing the county's best interests in this. And so keep that in mind in this appointment. Usually, we don't have a whole lot of people wanting to do this, so we've had to open it up several times,
Right.
and now we have 2.
Yep.
Commissioner
correct.
Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I happen to know, excuse me, both these folks, but, I think the experience and the industry in which Mr. Pendleton serves is quite related to the facility and the board, the Merck board. So it would seem to me, unless there is a significant either understanding or reason or rationale, it seems to me that it fits more naturally with Mr. Pendleton in this regard. So that would be my first leaning.
Okay. Any comments from other commissioners on this? I'm in agreement, Commissioner Savas. I'll entertain a motion if you'd like.
I move that we appoint Mr. Pendleton to serve on the Merck board representing Clackamas County.
Commissioner Savas has moved we appoint David Pendleton to the Merck Board. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mark.
I'd also, before we vote, like to thank Ms. King for her willingness to step up in this.
Yeah, I was going to
capacity.
say that because I know both these people as well. They're both stellar.
Yes.
And maybe if Renee King wants to apply for some other ABC, we would be more than happy to look at her, right?
Most certainly.
Yes, yes. And she has been a supporter of Clackamas County, too. Thank you. Hearing no further comments on this, Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Caroline, for
Thank you
bringing
very
this
much.
forward. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next, Metro UGB Exchange update and proposed comment letter. Dan Johnson and Jamie Stasny from Transportation and Development will present. There was a memo in your packet, including a draft comment letter that you could choose to approve today, if you desire.
Go ahead, thank you.
I'm so short in this chair. Good morning
You still
again.
look tall, Dan.
Yeah, no, I don't really feel tall right now. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Jamie and I had the pleasure of being up here on January 4th to update the board about 2 open house sessions that Metro was going to hold on the Metro UGB proposal. I know a number of you attended those and may have comments regarding those. At that meeting, we were directed by the board to provide and develop some a written document to submit for the public hearing. Public hearing is scheduled to take place on January 19th. So we are here as an exhibit number 1 for you to take a look at, unless you have any comments on that. And then just to inform the board, there is a tentative schedule that suggests final action will be taken on February 2nd. So just here to update the board on that, answer any questions you might have regarding the letter, any edits you might like to see, and go from there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner West.
I read this letter, and I think you, in many ways, captured the tone of how this board feels. Some of my colleagues are more experienced on this issue than I am, and may have better suggestions. So I just wanted to say, I think you guys did do a good job of capturing what our thoughts so far up to this point are. But, and I think that we should make sure that Metro knows exactly where we stand on this issue and try to do its best for Clackamas.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I don't have any quarrel with the letter. I wasn't able to go back and watch the meeting, the town hall that was online. Commissioner West and I did attend the one at Harmony Campus, and there was no general public there or property owners whatsoever. I'm just wondering if it's almost a topic for executive session as well, but I was wondering, what if they just move ahead? I'm looking at my colleagues. If they just move ahead, where are we going? Because the letter doesn't really say that. I'm kind of wondering, when I look under number 2 there, develop tangible commitments. I don't know what that can be, that actually, guarantees the support. I know that they necessarily can't bind one group of elected officials serving in the capacity of the Metro Council to, a new Metro Council. So are we in or not either agreement or aware that these are actually adequate? I don't know. I was expecting that there would be a land study produced by the Port of Portland late last year. I thought it was due in December. I haven't seen that. Is that out there yet? I'm just really wondering where we go from here.
And those are very good questions. The task force study maybe is what you're referring to. I understand it is complete. I understand they used a lot of data collected in Clackamas County that's been added to this study. It is not out there yet. Unfortunately, I don't know what they're waiting for on this. I was told there are a couple options if this goes through. We can always file an injunction to stop this. However, that would stop the proposed housing development in Tigard, which I don't want to be seen as slowing down a group or entity of folks who want to provide more housing for the region. I think that we are in a very precarious position. I also understand from an outside attorney that Clackamas County, at the very end, has to sign off on this. And we could always not sign off on it. And we could make that an issue. I've been contemplating talking with a lot of folks in the community of this board's further action regarding Metro and its land and the use of the urban growth boundaries that actually prohibits Clackamas County from expanding our jobs base, expanding our affordable housing. And I find it very troubling when the governor came out and declared her state of emergency for homelessness. She said all these units, 36,000 units, will be built inside the urban growth boundary over the next 10 years, 36,000 units a year inside the urban growth boundary. I think that bears another conversation with our governor, because she said that during her press conference when somebody asked her about that. She says, yes, inside the urban growth boundary. So I don't know who has the ear of our governor on that, but I do believe that to be not good information that she's receiving, because I don't believe that she has the entire picture of which I would like to present to her at a future conversation that I know we'll be having. So in order to build outside the urban growth boundary, it's going to take some changes at the legislative level, or it's going to take some changes for community members. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. We do have options available to us, however. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I too do not want to stall off the development in Washington County or Tigard. So that's certainly not the purpose. I don't want to see that impacted, but it seems to me that Metro's taking, and that's what's not really said in the first part of the letter. We all know that the city of Tigard made this request, or the developers jointly made the request to Metro, and Metro chose this path. The letter doesn't say that, but we know that's the case. And the topic was surrounding, at the Metro public event that Commissioner West and I attended, we addressed that there, saying, you know, you can take, you can just add this to the urban growth boundary. If not now, you have the best justification ever, if not now. Then you have the governor who, as you kind of referenced there, she made her announcement on her swearing in and the day after with the emergency orders. If now is not the time of emergency to add this land to the urban growth boundary for the sake of all that, then when, if not now? So why should we be handicapped? And I don't necessarily think that if it's this letter or a future letter, to me, it seems, I don't know, what I'm really worried about with this letter, I don't have a problem again with the way it's written, but what I'm worried about, what it doesn't say is that, you know, the what if, the what if Metro goes through this, they don't take our advice, and they proceed. It seems to me that we ought to give them fair warning that we will, oppose it and prefer that they expand the urban growth boundary in light of give them a suggestion that we would support. I think if we added a line or a phrase or some language to that effect, that we will support expanding the UGB in light of the governor's emergency ordinance and the housing emergency at hand.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think he's writing down, as Jamie is, and all commissioners want to speak on this. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want Tiger to have housing, but it's not really my problem. It's not this board's problem. We're about Clackamas County. And, I mean, we all need more housing. And we had this conversation for quite a while, Commissioner Savas and I, when we went to the Metro event where they were wanting to hear from the public. There was no public there. It was a bunch of Metro staff and Commissioner Savas. You guys both also went to a meeting. I don't know if Commissioner Scholl did. But it is a taking, and it's not clear to me why we can't find an actual exchange and not a taking. Fine, maybe those lands aren't ready now because you won't give us the infrastructure necessary to cause housing to explode and grow in those areas. They'd be very desirable places to live if we actually built the appropriate infrastructure out there and transportation needs. But we have industrial land needs. Wilsonville's exploding and has done a really good job with how they've done development. So is Happy Valley. Why can't we be nimble? Why can't we find some lands that aren't ready in Washington County and kind of reduce those and give us a little bit more? It's just insane that we're being so restrictive in the process. And once again, the short end of the stick, it's Clackamas County. No matter how you want to like cut up the pie and the cake, that's the truth. And so I empathize with the housing need. I agree with my colleagues, but I also want to, if Tualatin's housing Tigard's housing does not get built because they want to take from Clackamas County, then that's not our problem. That's the policymakers that are doing these decisions to take from us. And so I think that I want to make sure that that's very clear as we negotiate this, that we're not going to be walked over.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Savas, you're putting some of that language in is going to be a good idea at this point. And Chair Smith, have you ever gotten a courtesy call back from President Peterson?
I got a text message from her last week.
Okay, good. So.
A couple months overdue.
We talked in the parking lot this weekend.
Well, that's good. That's good. Because, and I know that we have two of our commissioners working on JPAC and MPAC, watching this pretty closely. Do we need to get together with President Peterson and Christine Lewis and just really lay it on the table and just, in a friendly, You know, we're doing back and forth with the letter. I would just like to sit down with them and say, what is the solution to this? Because it is wrong what they're, wrong. It's a dilemma to think regionally, and I do feel like we're like the Rodney Dangerfield of counties sometimes. We don't get no respect, okay? And we need to change that. But the only way I can think of is to change that is to really get them at the table with us and have a perfectly, not just a letter, but a perfectly frank conversation, electeds to electeds, and not ambush them, not to put them in a bad spot. Just say, geez, guys, this isn't, we have to serve our people.
Well, believe me, I have reached out time and time again.
Well, then let's keep doing it. I'll make phone calls if you need me to, but.
Dan, did you want to say something before we continued?
I just want to make sure that the board remembers and realizes you have been consistent in your messaging, and it has been consistent around the fact that this is not a Tigard-Clackamas County concern. This is a process concern. And it's a methodology concern. It's the decision in which, it's the process in which they chose to advance this particular adjustment. Is it done through, then, which was made by their COO, for some valid reasons on their side, apparently. But again, the discussion is not about not supporting an expansion in the UGB. It's simply, why choose the swap methodology versus antiquated methodology you have in place that's limiting the ability to grow right now? You've been fully in support of a UGB expansion. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's just where that comes from under this swap proposal, so.
I have an idea, but Commissioner Scholl, you're in the queue, so go ahead.
I support the need of Washington County and the city of Tigard to receive this land. They need to grow, they need housing, but just like we do. But I'm hoping that every state legislator in the area is looking at this problem, because what this is the gnashing of teeth, the pain caused by the restrictive Oregon land use laws and the restrictive repressive metro urban growth boundary. And until action is taken to modify those laws and that urban growth boundary, we're going to continue to live under these, what Mr. Johnson called antiquated laws. It's got to change, and it's got to start in Salem. Thank you.
So in my conversations with Metro councilors, and I've talked to most of them except for Chair Peterson, because I called directly, they say, well, we're just responding to an ask from the city of Tigard. I think this letter should state that Clackamas County will have an ask of Metro to designate future industrial and housing lands, and then this board can decide what that is. However you want to word that, I think is very important. Also, what's not in this letter is, I've said many, many times, Clackamas County will not tolerate being a donor county.
It's in there.
I didn't see that.
Last paragraph,
At the
you got
very
it.
end. I'm
Yep.
sorry, I missed
No,
that
it's okay.
part. We will not, and I'm just going to say it for the record because I know you all want to hear it again. We are not a donor county at our expense so other jurisdictions can prosper. That really needs to be out there. So Commissioner Savas, you're in the queue.
Yeah, your comments, Chair, bring to mind when I've had received phone calls from people about this. I said, well, I don't know where the board is because the board has not yet had a work session or a study session on this matter. We certainly have talked about it here at the dais, from time to time with these letters and so on, but we really haven't spent the time to talk about the complexities, land use planning, transportation, how the industrial lands you referenced. So while I hear what you're saying, I think Chair, I think it's also incumbent upon us to actually have that discussion amongst us to figure out what it is we might want. And we haven't had that yet.
Well, the reason why we
Chair,
haven't had that is because we are having on February 8th and 9th, I think this is going to be discussed, where commissioners, I just have to say this, Paul, because you keep I feel like you're kind of throwing arrows at whomever, because this board has not laid out a plan where we want to be in 2 years. So for us to piecemeal something before we have our 2-day, what do you call it? retreat to decide what we want to do. That's the only reason why it hasn't been on the docket. So, and I think you can appreciate that because we do have a new board member. We're going to be making assignments. That's the only reason. I mean, I'm ready to go, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm not sure. I mean, I understand, been to a lot of retreats. I understand our council advisement that we don't really talk about, specifics. We talk about, where we want to see big picture things, and maybe there's some relationship to that. But where I'm really kind of going again with the value of this is how do we respond, and we're here at the dais and we really don't have all the stuff. We can't really talk about, okay, what's our constraints when it comes to, if you add 36,000 homes per year, or whatever the governor's issue, how do we supply the infrastructure for that? Wastewater, transportation in particular, transit in particular. And I'm very concerned that we're just going to build the housing, we're not going to build the vital infrastructure like transportation. What does this do for Clackamas County if all the, and I am all looking, I want to look at industrial land as well, because there's a lot of industrial land I discovered, and Commissioner West did as well at that meeting, that they've got all this land out there in Washington County for jobs. We need to have that as well. Mm-hmm. And our people are commuting, into other parts of the region, and vice versa, but that commute shed has demonstrated that 75% of our working force leaves the county every day to go to work. So we certainly need the industrial land, but we also need the transportation, the linkage to get us there, and that's going to be a lengthy discussion. I don't think that a retreat will typically get in that kind of detail, which is why I advocate for the work session.
Oh, sure, I do too. Yep. Commissioner West?
Just a little piggyback on what Commissioner Savas said, and I'll just use an example from my experience in the city of Wilsonville. The work sessions that we did were vital for our council to be moving in one direction and understanding what's going on. There was a significant amount of time on meaty topics that were dedicated to those things, and it made that city function a lot better as a unit with its board. So I can see a value maybe to having that conversation about how we can maybe improve our ability to talk on these topics and collaborate together on these topics. And so I do see, I don't know if that's similar to what you're talking about, Commissioner Savas, but I know as a new guy, I just, you often feel like you're sucking on the end of that fire hose. And so some of these ways to kind of roll up our sleeves together, I think would there's opportunity for that. And I think that's a good thing, and we all want to work together. So that's just a little perspective I come from my background, coming from. Oops, sorry.
I agree, yeah. Yeah, it's helpful for me to turn off the lights, because then I know where I'm at. So you just have to do the light once.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Scholl, any further comment? No. So Commissioner Schrader and I attended the second meeting, which was technically called a town hall.
It was just
But you
that.
had no idea. We saw two people. And so whatever type of format Metro put out, you didn't know who was on, you didn't know if there was anybody from the community that are affected by this. We have not seen any testimony from any of the affected communities. We have no idea who was saying what. If somebody spoke, an arbitrary phone number came up or a first name. And I thought for a town hall, it was very poorly done. And I don't think Metro is really interested in what the community thinks on this. And frankly, they're not interested in what Clackamas County thinks on this. So that's why I suggest we put language in there about a future proposal. This board can work on, are you in? Mm-hmm. Okay, this board can work on crafting that, what it's going to look like in some lengthy policy sessions. I have no objection to that. Commissioner West and then Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I think those comments were pithy, Chair, because when I remember specifically thinking to myself, why are Commissioner Savas and I all the way over in this region of Clackamas County, just a little by Town Center, 82nd area, nowhere close to where these lands are at with the community that's most impacted. It very much was like lip service, have some cookies, but nobody from Damascus on this issue is going to drive 40 minutes, 30 minutes on a school night to go do this. And no one from Oregon City is close by either. It seems to watch my tongue and how I talk on the dais, but it seems to be half-baked or just, yeah, we did it, check the box, instead of meaningful outreach that impacts the stakeholders in the communities the most. And I think often that kind of outreach is what aggravates and upsets our constituents the most.
So Commissioners, I guess what I want to know, you want to have the policy session before the task force comes out, the microchip task force report comes out, and there is one of the subcommittees that did do a big study on lands. Do you want to do it as soon as we can get it scheduled? I guess I want to know from you, because I thought that the task force report would be out before Christmas, and it has not, and I don't know. Obviously, there's somebody pulling strings on this. Frankly,
Metro
I
said
don't know.
it's done.
Well, I know it's done.
So I don't know what is it doing now? Yeah.
Well, Metro isn't in charge, although I'm sure they influenced it greatly. And Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah. I'll call Curtis Robinhold. I did ask him once, and he kind of didn't give me a clear answer. I'll try again. But what I want to ask, actually, I wanted to ask Commissioner Savas, Commissioner Shull, where is C4 on all of this?
You know,
Are we pulling together our cities that are allies and are seeing this as well as an unfair, like, where's West Lynn on this? Okay, Canby and Malala have employment land. I think
We do.
Out of there, we do. But where's within the UGB? Is Milwaukee kind of going, what the hey? I mean, what are those meetings when you have them?
Well,
Any allies at all?
at regular
Right.
C4, we have been inundated with transportation issues, so we
Right.
really haven't had that process much. And I think what threw me a little bit were the maps and the areas being, especially Oregon City, being considered. That changed, and it caught me by surprise, the change. So I'm afraid, I won't say afraid, but it appears, at least from me and others, that what people presumed about the upper area around Forsyth Road is no longer on the table. It's a different area altogether, very close to a lot of population, by the way. So I've got different opinions right now about the Oregon City piece of it, but we haven't discussed it
Yeah, I think.
at great detail.
I think really, because when they did the urban rural reserve piece, it was largely to put expansion in the laps of the cities with UGBs. Okay, so if they like Oswego, we've got the vortex there with the triangle, which they don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, which I get that. But if we had allies in our cities, like where is West Lynn growing right now? Where is, what?
Wilsonville, Happy Valley are
Wilsonville,
growing.
Happy Valley,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are their needs? We need to talk to, let's get Tom Ellis off getting nervous about housing and get him more on track with this, to say, hey, we need your help.
So I think, just a caveat to that, 5 of Oregon's fastest-growing cities are in Clackamas County.
Yeah.
And it's Happy Valley, Malala is one of them. West Lynn, and who are the
Oh, no,
others?
sorry, Wilsonville, not West Lynn.
Wilsonville.
Canby.
Canby, yeah.
Canby, yeah.
And so you look at those places, all of those jurisdictions have control over their own urban growth boundary, okay? And it's really unfair to assume that the cities can continue to expand without funding the infrastructure needs that go along with growth.
That's right.
Okay? Where does that money come from? And so I think it's really easy for Metro to say, oh, we're not going to expand our urban growth boundary because the cities need to provide services. That's not necessarily true. We have reached a stage where the technology is available, that services can be provided by the developer. I mean, the technology is there, where we do not have to hook up to a city. I hope you folks know that. So I really want you to start thinking about that. And there's some private sector money that could help fund that. Dan?
Well, this has been a good talk. A couple things. We are tracking the semiconductor discussion. When that gets finalized,
Okay.
we plan to engage the board about that and inform them of that, and then probably have some future discussion regarding it. You say, and I can't remember which commissioner said it, but you said there was a we in there, and you hit on it, Commissioner Schrader. That we is not only the county, it's got to be those cities that are willing
got
and
it.
interested and have capacity to partner to expand and to grow. And we continue to work with those cities, and we need to do more with those cities and figure out, some are clear. You just listed off the top, Canby, Happy Valley, all those folks are really growing in certain areas. Others have concern about growing in certain areas. And that's their prerogative as a city. But we have to have willing partners out there to advance this discussion further. I want to go back to the letter, though, because I want to make sure we're all clear. What I've heard is there's 2 proposed edits on it, okay? One is Commissioner Savas's discussion around the timing, that we support a UGB expansion. The timing seems ripe for that in light of the governor's order, et cetera. Secondly, it was the chair, I believe, who wanted to add some language around there about a future Clackamas County ask. I guess I'm generally of the opinion, when I put an ask like that in there, I keep it as general as I can. And then allow that discussion to mature at the board level when we can refine it and bring it forward for future discussion if the board is comfortable with that. And those are the 2 edits that I heard. I just want to kind of get us back to this letter and then know the fact that we've got to talk more about this. And it's like, what's that trigger and when?
Like I said, we're waiting for the task force report to hopefully give us some
And we had hoped to have been here sooner as
ammunition to
well.
move forward
Yep.
on this. I'm not sure it is. Commissioners, would all 5 of us like to sign this letter?
Yes.
Okay, prepare that
Absolutely.
document, please. They all have our electronic signature.
Chair, just one last thought. I just find it curious that Metro's marching ahead with their deadline, and the report is lagging.
Oh, I know. So,
It sounds like we all know that the
Gee,
report's
I'm shocked and
done.
amazed.
Yeah.
But
Been done.
it's not being, that doesn't sound very,
so I will share with you my
That sounds like there's
conversations.
something
You're
wrong.
right. I share with you my conversations with the Metro counselors. Would you please wait on this land exchange until the task force report comes out? Because what if the task force report is contrary to what you're approving here going forward, and they go to the legislature? Don't you want to work for success and not have mud on your face? Every single counselor says, well, you're right, Chair Smith. Privately, they told me, well, you're right, I think we can do that. They show up in block and vote against what they told me privately.
That doesn't build good relationships.
So there you go. There you go, commissioners. Okay, I think you have clear direction from us. Thank you.
And I
very-
heard all 5 want to sign it, correct?
Yes, all
Okay.
5 want to sign. Mhm.
Yes,
Gary,
thank you.
what's next? Thank you very much for coming
Want to see
forward.
it one more time, or can we, after these edits are made, just send it out?
Yes, after the edits are made, send out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Gary,
you.
what's
Next, board travel expenses. Chair Smith, would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
Well, you can start, and then I'll add to it.
Great. So commissioners, as you know, you have a travel expense each year for the travel you take as commissioners. That includes your mileage, airfare, registration, hotels, et cetera, for conferences. This current fiscal year, you budgeted $30,000 for board travel. You've already spent $22,000, so you have $8,000 left for the last 6 months of this year. This is all general funded, by the way. Chair Smith has a proposal for you to consider. You can react to it today. You don't have to decide today. And that is starting July 1st fiscal year, 2023, that each of you have $5,000 for travel for the entire fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, that you can use or lose, and that's all you get. So if you have travel beyond that, you would have to find external sources of funding, or you pay for it out of your pocket. You can't share your fund with others, so you can't say, I'm not traveling, so I'll give my $5,000 to your colleagues. It's $5,000 for you and no one else. And that would mean the total budget would actually decrease for next year, a total of $25,000. 5 of you times 5, $25,000 for travel budget. So Chair Smith and I just wanted to bring this forward to hear your thoughts, concerns. This will be part of your budget process for July, so you don't have to approve it today, but also just want to give you a heads up, you're close to being at the end of your travel budget for the current fiscal year ending June 30th.
And there's a couple of factors that I want the board to consider, and that is we're asking all departments to make cutbacks in what they're doing. And I think it behooves us well to lead by example and cut back as well. Now, there are travel that the board must do. We get in our car, we're asked to attend meetings, we're asked to do this. For instance, Commissioner Scholl travels clear down to Southern Oregon. Coos Bay, you can't make that trip in a day and have a meeting. That's a very long ways. We attend the Association of Oregon Conference every year. Commissioner Schrader and I lobby for DC, and I want my other commissioners to do that as well, and that's the next agenda item that's coming up. That's a rather expensive trip. Originally, I said if we could just keep it at 2 trips a year, but frankly, a lot of us don't do that. So I would submit that we try the $5,000. And if we go over that, if there's an extenuating circumstance that's almost like an emergency, I think that the commissioner needs to bring that back to the board and have a discussion on it. I'm not willing to say, no, oh, you can't go do that. But it really needs to be something that is the most benefit to Clackamas County. Now, commissioners, when we visit Washington, D.C., and we lobby, we're always able to bring back a heck of a lot more money than it costs us in travel and our DC lobbyists and any other accompanying staff members. So when you look at that particular travel, there's not much travel out there where you can reap the benefits from. But I acknowledge that travel is somewhat important. During COVID, we got away from that. We did a lot of Zoom meetings. I suspect some of the meetings that we're traveling for can be done by Zoom, except when you're meeting with our congressional leaders person to person, that does make a difference. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair proposal. As someone who does a lot of travel because of my duties at the National Association of Counties, and I do know there's other money out there. For example, this last trip that I took is a result of a grant from NACO through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it was no cost to the county. There are monies available, external dollars, for that, to do that. I do think going to DC is important, and I would like to see more of us go to the National Association of Counties, either the legislative one or the one in July. Because I'm a chairman of a commission of the Community Economic Development and Workforce, I'm expected to go to those two meetings as the chairman of that. And, and so that's fine. And anything above that, I've said this to Gary before, if I need to dip into my own funds to do that kind of a duty, but I do think it's important that maybe we really start going to NACO. And the legislative meeting is coming up. I'll be taking a red eye to that in February, because again, I'm chairing a committee. But we used to, when they had the NACO meetings there, we had all three of us at the time, when there was a 3-member commission, and maybe we can't do all 5 of us, but we always did our Hill visits and combined it with that meeting and worked with Hal and those guys. And I don't know how we've gotten away from that. I've heard that staff feels that we get lost in the shuffle, but we never felt that way. We got to see every single person who's part of our delegation and go to meetings with other intelligent people from across the country to talk about how we're running our counties, plural. So I don't know if that's something that we should talk about, because I shouldn't be the only one going.
Well,
should
in the
not be.
next topic, Commissioner Schrader is board DC trip, and we can talk
Okay.
about our future trips then. I'm just trying to codify
yeah.
a budget moving forward. Does not
And-
apply
but
to
I-
this year, but we will consider it in our budget process that would start July 1st. Commissioner
Okay.
Savas?
Yeah, well, as someone who I think, if not every year, most every year has spent or traveled the least and spent the least, if you will, I think it's probably safer for me to say this, because it's all public record. I'm not concerned about anyone looking at my expenditures. I do know that in my first year, for example, I asked the question, and I do know there was a lot more money appropriated towards our travel, and I never used it or maximized using it at all. But I do know that we alternate from year to year on our DC trips, and sometimes, I do it as a duty. I don't see it as a vacation by any means. And, frankly, most everything we do is relatively duty-bound, but I haven't been to D.C. in quite a while, and I'm a little bit concerned, frankly, about this. I get the $30,000 annual, whatever the limit's set at. I understand that, but to see that it's already half gone or more than half used up, and knowing that I haven't used any significant travel funds for several years. I was anticipating that I would be asked again to go to DC because it's been a long time. However, because of that alternating thing, I don't think it's wise or appropriate to look at it on an annual basis. Maybe it should be done on a 4-year basis that matches our term, in your 4 years, because you're going to have years that are going to be expensive when you go to DC, and you're going to have years, and maybe we can use the money more effectively, but to use it on a 12-month, look at it on a 12-month annual basis or $5,000 allotment, I think that's troubling. Also, it strikes me that I would certainly like to know what the travel budget is for other people of the county, staff, directors, and others, and know and make sure that, those same limits or restrictions or expenditures are equally in line. And I'd like to see a breakdown what that is per department and so on and so forth. But I don't think that we should hold ourselves, let's just say, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what they're going to reveal, but I wouldn't want to see us having an artificially tight budget and have other department people or staff or heads of departments with, something that is far greater than ours.
Thank you. That's a good way to look at it, too. Commissioner Scholl and then Commissioner West.
Yes, on the $5,000 annual limit, I can live with that. What I will do with Carolyn Hill, policy advisor, is look at the year, my anticipated trips, and make sure I can stay within budget. A lot of times, too, I can use a Zoom to be involved in a meeting almost as efficiently as driving a few hundred miles. So I'll work this. I'll make it work.
I have some additional comments I want to add, too, that I didn't say earlier. But Commissioner West?
Yeah, I hear what everybody here is saying. I don't think that, my perception is, as the new guy and looking in, is nobody on this board is not bringing immense value back when they go to work somewhere, and if they have to travel to go work for the county somewhere. Even the $5,000 annually is quite conservative. And, a trip to DC is never cheap. The hotels, the food, it's an expensive place to go back east.
I was just going to say that,
Like,
yes.
you can be like, well, you can go to DC and then maybe Medford, right? Like, if you need to go somewhere, like, you could. But I like the idea of coming back to the board and saying, hey, this thing's come up. I need an exception, and this is how it benefits the board. Do you support me, colleagues, in doing this and going over budget? I think there's a nice way to do it. And wasn't clear, like, if AOC and other things that are just kind of a given, if that's also included in all.
It's at the travel budget.
So the total travel budget right now includes any and all kind of travel?
Well, currently, that's how it is dispersed and allocated.
Okay.
Now, I will say this, travel expenses have gone up. Airfares have risen, the cost of food has risen at restaurants, and DC isn't a very expensive trip. It's probably the most expensive trips we have on the docket, besides NACO. And Commissioner Schrader recommended, kind of doubling up. Well, I'm going to go right into the next Board DC trip that I want to talk about. Typically, we go in the fall of the year. However, talking with Hal Hemstra, our national lobbyist, he would like to see us go this spring. And I would like to see myself, Commissioner Savas, and Commissioner Scholl go on that DC trip.
Yeah.
I have been asked to attend by leadership to go to Washington, D.C. because I'm the chair, although I don't necessarily have to, but I've been requested. So, Gary, it might blow a hole in this year's travel budget for 3 commissioners to go in this calendar year because of what was spent in the fiscal year. I tend to look at the budgets for the year, but you're looking at it from the fiscal year. So if $5,000 per commissioner isn't enough, we tried to do a rotation on the Board of County Commissioners for our DC trips, and this fall was the first time we've gone since COVID. So we're coming into this again. Former Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Schrader have done a lot of NACO travel. I think that any participation from the commissioners on NACO is personal, up to them, whether they want to attend the NACO conferences or not. I frankly probably won't. I just don't see how I can get it in my schedule on what am I going to do away with so I can attend, a week away from my duties. I just don't see that happening with me. Not that it isn't valuable, but it's very difficult. Frankly, I have trouble attending the AOC meetings, and a lot of those are online as well. So that's what I'm looking at. Does 5,000 need to be up to 6,000? We consider a rotation, like Commissioner Savas said. We don't have to make up our minds today, but I'm just putting the notion out there. Commissioners, choose your travel wisely going forward. And maybe we need some more data, Gary, from what others are spending on that. Thank you. Commissioner West?
Just a heads up to the rest of my colleagues here. I will be in Rhode Island twice for significantly long trips this year. But while I'm there on my own dime, I am going to go to DC, hopefully with the direction of the board, for additional FaceTime with our legislators and our contacts in DC, because I'm already going to be there, so why not, right? And so that would be on my own dime, but that would give us a little.
That needs to be approved by this board, Ben.
But like,
before you-
that's what I'm saying, I just said, with direction of this board, if that's something we can do, that is something that is a possibility, but it wouldn't cost this anything additional.
Yeah, so the reason why commissioners go as pairs or three is because we each have a strength level. And we're able to talk off one another. If one commissioner isn't as coherent on a particular topic, the other one can fill in. That's why we don't do these by ourselves. I'm just going to put that out there for you. I know you're very ambitious and you want to conquer the world, but a lot of times we can't conquer the world in the first 6 months. Just letting you know that. So, yeah, I'm just letting you know that. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments regarding this? Barry?
I do. So on the travel, marinate on that. You can talk about it again at your retreat if you wish, or certainly before July 1st. I just need a range of money to budget, because we are so tight with the budget. If you decide to do new travel, there's no money for that, which means you're going to take it from your contingency. Do you really want to do that? I don't think you do. So I just need to know, for the July 1st budget, what is the range of amount you want in the board travel budget, the total pot? You can tell me that later. As far as DC trips, may I have our Public and Government Affairs staff put a proposal together for you? I used to do that work in that department. We used to take all 5 commissioners once a year. That was before COVID. That was when money was a lot more generous at the county. So that may not be realistic anymore, but certainly we want to rotate so you each have a chance to go, whether it's over 1 or 2 years. But the pairings are important, and we want to make that strategic to benefit you and benefit the purpose of the county, your goals. So we come back to you on that, and we can confirm the dates for the year, because there's a JPAC trip, which Commissioner Savas and Shull may or may not want to go on, right? That also happens around March. So can we come back to you with that? Would that be acceptable?
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I just want to say it's fair. I mean, Commissioner Savas, you should be going back doing transportation stuff. It is important to meet with other people and get refreshed and be with other colleagues. And just not colleagues here too. So I would support all of you. Again, I'm more than willing to put my own money with this because I think it's that critically important. At least, I mean, when I make comments today, I'll tell you what I learned in Alabama.
Sure.
Which was pretty fantastic stuff. Okay, so yes, I think that I hope that you all get a chance to do that. I've been very privileged, and I'm very thankful for all of you supporting me in doing that kind of work.
When you and I went back to DC in September, I did attend a NACO meeting.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I know, but
thank you.
But you really needed to refresh yourself. I'm just telling you that I know the chair's job is so difficult and so hard. Sometimes you just need to do it because it gives you the break to say, okay, we're all in the same boat doing this work.
I know we are.
It's important for you to.
I know we are. Thank you, Commissioner Schrader, on that. Please allow each commissioner to make up their own decision when it comes to NACO.
Okay.
Okay, you've made this proposal to me many, many times. I heard you the first 50. Just I want to let you know that, okay? Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Gary, maybe that you guys be a little bit more creative. I just want to think that my budget changes, July 1 for something I didn't do on June 30th, right? So I think we ought to, I don't think if it's, let's just say it's done hypothetically on our 4-year term, that our fund should be swept year 1 on July 1st or June 30th. That, if we, again, because we're going to have fluctuations in travel, to look at it a little bit differently and treat it a little bit differently.
Okay. Any other statements on travel, DC trips, whatever? Okay, Gary, what's up next?
Okay. Next, Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead.
The Traffic Safety Commission has 7 openings on their commission due to term expirations and resignations. Through a recruitment process, 10 applications were received, including 3 reappointment requests. 7 are recommended for appointment, including those 3 reappointments. Recommendations are Jeanette DeCastro to a 1st term, Andrew Labonte to a 1st term, James Waddington to a 1st term, William Farley to a 1st term, Nathan McCarthy to a 3rd term, Christopher Larson to a 3rd term, and Bob Carl to a 4th term.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, when I was looking at the packet last night, I was looking for the applications, and they're not included in the packet. And the reason I was looking, one of the reasons I was looking at the wanting to see the applications was to get an idea of where our regional representation is around the county, again, based on area. Certainly, traffic safety and pedestrian safety, all kinds of safety have been really at the peak of mind here in the last year or so. And rural issues are just as, if not more pertinent than the urban challenges we have. So I just wanted to get a sense. I don't know if it's urgent that we do this today, but if there's a courtesy of bringing it back next week, I'd appreciate that. But I want to make sure, I don't know what the public outreach was. I just don't have any idea. And I think I really want to bring more involvement and substance to this topic of traffic safety. Again, because it is a peak of mind for all the regional transportation leaders that we're talking about this substantially, and I just want to make sure we're well equipped.
Is there anybody that can, in the room that can speak on this? Who does this?
Joan Mayer.
Chair, I do know where these applicants are located and could share that information with the board if you would like.
Okay, well, I just asked because I want to see the entire, all the members current, even the ones that are being reappointed, again, to get that sense of regional balance. So I just ask if we can bring this back next week.
Is there a time limit on this, Tony?
There is not, Chair.
Commissioner West?
On the applicants that we have before us, where we have the questions that they answered, most of them seem to be very much in the urban areas of the county. There is, it looks like, one person who applied that is more in the rural area, which brings a different perspective. And I maybe, I have a couple thoughts about the different applicants, but I don't want to publicly
Well, yeah, what are we going to do? Let's
like-
say they don't fit, just a moment.
Yeah.
They don't fit our criteria, are we going to kick somebody off this recommended list and bring in somebody else? I mean, maybe this is it who applied. Maybe we don't have any more applications. That's the danger we pose.
If it looks like my understanding here that we have 4 new recommended members after, I didn't look at that first, but then I did look at the application pages supplied. Mine were different than the recommendations by staff a little bit.
You found them? I couldn't find.
Well, there's a page here in my packet that talks about the active roster, then the new members, and then we have this committee activation, the pages where they answered the questions and their address and a little bit about their background, occupation, which was awesome to read about, the diversity of the people that we have coming forward. But I would just look through this and kind of thinking the same when I was studying this, the same way that Commissioner Savas was, is like, you know, where are all these people from, and are all the backgrounds kind of the same and similar, or is there diversity there? And so I just came up with a little bit different list, but I don't want to like go through here and just be like, well, I didn't like this candidate publicly, and I like this one better. I don't think that's appropriate, but I wanted to just, maybe we need to like look at that a little further.
Yeah, so if we have a preconceived criteria, then what are we going to do about it? Historically, for the last year, Commissioners, we've had trouble getting enough applicants for the ABCs to fill the positions. So I don't know what a delay is.
So we're lucky this time.
Commissioners, it's really up to you what you want to do.
I move to bring this back next week.
You don't need a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, there you go. Commissioner Saffis has moved to bring
all
the
agree.
Transportation Commissions back next week. Commissioner
Whoever.
Schrader has seconded that. Further discussion. So the motion on the table is to bring this appointment back next week with additional information, correct?
That
Any
is
other
correct.
conversations?
Yeah, really quick. In executive session, can we talk about, like, if we want to, if there's more unusually?
We can talk about it here.
But I don't want to talk about specific people and their background and make them feel like that we're not so happy that they applied, period, right? And be like, we picked this one and like deliberate over who these different applicants are. But in this situation, maybe privately with the chair, we can give our
Gary, what's-
top four, or a
Gary?
way to like put the list together of how we want
It
to
is
fill
not executive session eligible. So
It's
you have-
not,
You have
okay.
to have a public discussion, or you have individual conversations with staff, one-on-one, to share your perspective. We don't normally do that for ABCs, but if you'd like us to do that for this one or others, we can start doing that. So we'll pull this to next week. We'll have staff in the room to answer your questions. If you want to talk individually offline, let me know, and I'll get this transportation staff to meet with you. And yes, you are emailed this, Commissioners, by Tony. It is not posted online because we want to protect the information of the residents' home addresses and so forth. But Tony sends it to you each week, so you all got it. But we'll pull it till next week and have staff in the room.
Yeah, can I just throw one more thought on my
Go
side?
ahead.
So, for example, in this packet, I liked that somebody from Estacada, Mr. McCarty, applied, because I didn't, maybe that's just a whole different type of person that normally would apply and bring a new diversity of thought to this issue. And that's one that stuck out to me just geographically, and he had, I think, appropriate experience. But that doesn't mean that the four people that are recommended aren't also amazing. We get so many people applying, and, there's limited spots, and we hope they continue to want to serve. But that was just one thought, I think, for me when I looked at these different applicants.
Any further comments? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Please bring that back, and so folks can take a look at it.
All right, next, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, January 19th, 2023, 10 a.m. You have all the consent agenda items from today's meeting and a previously approved land use issue, comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change for 2 items. This was an item the board discussed in December, so Commissioner West, you obviously weren't here for that. We can brief you on what that means. But that's your agenda. If you have any questions, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff will answer them for you. Finally, Commissioner Communications, Chair Smith.
Commissioner Schrader, you're up first.
Okay. Well, I got home safe from Alabama, flying through a tornado, but that was one of my more interesting experiences. Halfway kidding, but it was a little bumpy. And I wanted to tell you what I've learned there, and I bring literature back with me every single time. Plus, NACO has given me a worksheet each time we go to a different county to look at their economic development frameworks. We do a follow-up of exactly, where we're going to go with it, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to make something happen in our own counties. One of the things I learned there that was pretty remarkable is that between the community college, the workforce board, the biggest chamber of commerce that they have in Mobile, all have gotten together to have an incubator space for new emerging businesses. it is a priority of theirs. So one of the panels we had were all the folks involved with that, from the chamber, their community college, University of Alabama as well. And they, as a collective, make sure that they get the data for the landscape of what their sectors are. Big manufacturing sector, big medical sector, somewhat similar to ours, actually. And what can they do to get people trained up and moving into those kinds of jobs? And how can they move people from poverty, up the ladder to economic prosperity? That's really the focus of these meetings. The other thing that I thought was outstanding is that in Mobile, they have a place called Africatown. And I don't know if any of you have seen the documentary yet of the descendants. And it is a documentary. I've been trying to find it. It's up for an Academy Award. And we got to meet the individuals from the last slave ship that essentially, it was remarkable, that was brought to the United States of America, where people were just left in the woods because it was, at that time, illegal. So these people were just left. And they had to pull themselves with no way to get anywhere, no way to get back. And so they colonized a whole section of Mobile, Alabama. And the documentary is about the descendants of those people. Because the people that brought them over was one of the main families of Mobile, Alabama. And they bragged about the fact that they did this. So what essentially they did was they burned the ship and sunk it in the harbor. So all you had was a narrative oral history. Nobody really knew. And then they discovered the actual boat. And the reason why they saw that they found it, they've documented it all, and I think the remarkable thing there is that their community has gotten together a tourism piece where they really are tracing African American history throughout all of Mobile, where places where people have been hurt or killed, or people, or here's somebody who was famous in their community and really helped people along. I mean, all of that history is now documented, and they're essentially expecting this to be a huge piece of their history and a tourism, piece, because they took us on a bus all around to these spots that were so integral to the community of Africatown. And they found a cemetery that had been entirely overgrown, nothing. And they went in there and they cleaned it. You can see it in just hundreds of people that were there. But very interesting how they're going to move this. I think it's probably going to get an Academy Award. So I'm going to ask you guys to watch the Academy Awards over this, because that was pretty remarkable. And that's why I want to bring home to you. I have literature for you. Every time I go, I'm bringing home piles of stuff. And I will probably show some of that at our Thursday meeting, particularly the follow-up sheet that I'd like to share with all of you. So, okay, thank you. And thank you for supporting me in these efforts. I really do appreciate it, because this is such a hard job, Chair, and I just feel refreshed when I can. That's why I'm encouraging all of us.
Well, some of us react to travel differently than you do. You need to acknowledge that. And when I say what I say, that needs to be respected as much as your ability to go.
I love you to death.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
It's not Valentine's Day.
Mad.
Yeah, well, I think Chair just made a good point. I think how we unwind or how we relax or reflect is a little bit different for each of us. I think that's just human nature. I didn't anticipate that comment or that conversation, because I was going to talk about what I did over the last week, as far as, at least not what I physically did, and what I was with family and so forth, but more about reflection. And that was because I was starting to write my words for the swearing in tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night? Yes, tomorrow night. And so I've been reflecting quite a bit on the last 12 years and the 10 years, 13 years before then, my last 25 years of public service. And you know, we've made a lot of progress. We've had some successes, and we had some shortcomings, and we have a lot of things that haven't really been closed out. And I just think there's some great opportunity to do some of that as best we can. And I'm going to work hard on that. And I also was reflecting on the last 2 years with COVID, and I just found out yesterday that a friend of mine I haven't seen in a long time had passed away. I wasn't even aware of it, but learned the hard way. And so I just realized that the last 2 years has felt more like 3 or 4 years. And going back to the very first day when Chair Smith and Commissioner Scholl took office as new board members, and thinking about what we've done, we really haven't had really an opportunity because of COVID and all the handicaps and stuff that came with that, hardships and couldn't meet in a room and not having the right consultants willing to meet in a room because of COVID. We just really haven't had the opportunity to work, to chat, work, have the work sessions, have the retreats, have, giving all of us up to speed on what we want to see and what's going on and what our interests are. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm glad that we got a date calendared in February for at least the retreat aspect. But we've, that's really what I've been up to, trying to catch up with family. And I'll be in February. I have some families I'm going to go see while they're still around, and it's always hard because I'm getting to that point in my family where I'm one of the senior members of the family, and it's kind of, I still think I'm 29 years old apparently, and I'm not 29 years old no longer.
You're not? I would have never guessed,
And I
Commissioner
had hair.
Salas.
I had hair one day, but back then too. But, reflection is both personal, it's also on the business we do and the responsibility. And I just think about all the community members that are so active and volunteering in so many different things that that matter, that we all care about, are really important. And I think they have high hopes that we can move the ball. I certainly appreciate, Commissioner West, your energy that you're bringing to the table. I know you're brand new. I want to get you. We want to see you get up to speed, and that fire hose takes time, right? I mean, there's only so much one can absorb, and I'm not even sure Commissioner Scholl had that same opportunity because of COVID and everything else that a new commissioner would have.
That's right.
Would have enjoyed. So I think we need to be mindful that we have a lot of catching up to do, and it's all positive. There's nothing but upside as we look forward. So just wanted to share that, and I'll conclude my comments there, Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good morning. Commissioner Schrader, I'd like to thank you for your information you passed this morning about the history of the South. Every element of American history is important and must be preserved to light the way for the future of America. Last week, I had the privilege of being in Canby to hear from the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Chair Smith was there also. They briefed us on OLCC operations. It was also an event for newly elected legislators, and it was really nice to meet everybody. I had a really good time with that. We had a tour of the Columbia Distribution Facility. We also learned about the OLCC's plan for another distribution facility right there in that area in Canby. And I thought it was interesting to learn that the county gets some proceeds from OLCC receipts. So I told the new legislators there, please take full advantage of happy hour. Clackamas County needs the money.
There you go.
That's a little bit of humor there for you,
Yes, it
Chair
is.
Smith.
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
all right. And then also last week, I had the privilege of speaking to the Hoodland CPO up in Welch's, to a very large and very excited crowd about short-term rentals. That was very informative. I'll be sharing some more of that with Commissioner Savas here soon before we get back to the board on some ideas. And then tonight at 7 p.m., I'll be on the Clackamas County Parks Advisory Board meeting on Zoom. Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl, when we were out at the OLCC tour at Columbia Distributing, there was a little trivia question. I'm wondering if you remember. One of the senators asked at the Columbia Distributing, what is your biggest seller of spirits? And do you remember what the answer was?
I don't recall.
Oh, it surprised me. Modelo.
Oh, beer, yeah. On beer, yeah.
Modelo.
Sure.
And I said to the senator I was walking with, that's a beer, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Because I don't drink beer. Yeah, I found that to be very surprising.
Yeah, but I think on distilled spirits, the most popular is gin.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, so you ladies watch out for that now.
But as far as their shipping and their volume is concerned, out of Columbia, it's Modelo. But yeah, that was a fun tour, you're right. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I can feel the fire hose. But please know I'm super thirsty, so here we go. And I welcome it. And it's a reality that you guys have all been through already, and you guys have been amazingly supportive. I want to take a second to make sure that this board recognizes the holiday we just celebrated. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was yesterday. Our county was closed, but I took a lot of time to reflect on Dr. King's legacy. And I have two favorite quotes of his, because it's hard to pick just two, and they are brief, but I want to share them. I think we should mention this. Dr. King said, "Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminates it." And then he also said this, and this is something that we try to remember in our home, is darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, but only love can do that. And I love his legacy because he challenged the world through love. Even though there was disagreement and strife and quite a bit of contention in the 60s, he did it through the vehicle of love, and challenging us to live to our ideals, which Oregon has not always done, and our country surely has not always done, but his legacy and work continues to this day. And I was really proud also to be invited to the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast in Portland. It's the largest and biggest event of its kind on the West Coast. Governor Kotek was there, our senators were there, a lot of electeds, a large contingency of the African American community within the Portland area. It was in North Portland, not far from where I grew up. It's a large opportunity for young people to get scholarships and to receive those and to be recognized. There was a benediction and a lot of celebration and reflection at that time. So I had the honor to do that, and I am glad that we had a great American like Martin Luther King Jr. to do that work. I've been busy. This weekend, I also did a 14-hour ride-along with the sheriff's office. I posted on Facebook about a 1,200-ish word reflection of that ride-along. And it was incredibly informative. And I completely had the opportunity to observe the work that the men and women that wear that badge do every single day, and man, are they busy. Fentanyl was everywhere. It was like Skittles on the street. Almost every interaction we had engaged some type of severe drug addiction or mental health or gang activity. We had one tragedy where a father took his own life with a handgun. We had to run behind a deputy as he engaged in a foot chase, and had to deal with a very dangerous criminal. We had stolen cars dumped from Portland. We couldn't even get a burrito to try to have lunch. It took 4 times before he said, jump back in the car, we can't order. We got another call, zipping all over the county, saw the coverage areas, and it was quite informative, and I look forward to doing another one, and I am in awe of the men and women in law enforcement in our county. Now I have one more thing I want to bring to the board is I'd like to ask this board to allow me to be a liaison to our H3 services staff to really help create a vision and the beginnings of a framework so that we can show what that Clackamas County Way is as we address homelessness and housing in our county, and create a cohesive type of opportunity with our stakeholders to come back to this board and continue to work on that. I think it's easier to sell the Clackamas County Way on this issue when we lay it out and have a vision for everybody. I would be more than happy if another commissioner wanted to join me. I know there could be no more than 2. I believe it's somewhat urgent right now to start that because we are dealing with turnkey. And then it's going to be something we probably carry forward into our retreat. But I think that we need to show and explain how we are different than the rest of the region, what recovery-based models look like, what those assets may look like, how they'll be utilized, the type of programming we expect, and just through like my nursing experience, my experience with the patients at the bedside and in the community, and already starting to have this conversation with Gary and briefly with some of the staff, I think that there's a need for that so we can be one cohesive unit as we deal with a very complex and difficult issue. So that's my ask to this board, if you would be willing to allow me to start that work with the staff.
You and I talked about this, I think it was last week, although I can't remember the
Couple
weeks.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I said it was a great idea to take a deep dive into this. And it's, what it is program development. And that's going to take quite a bit of thought and time and staff time. Staff, I believe, is already getting started on that. We are not without program development and design, just so you know.
I agree.
And as I said earlier today in a meeting, there is no playbook in how we develop our programs for the homeless, and nor is there a playbook on exactly how to end homelessness. We've had money thrown at us that says you must spend it in a certain amount of time, and it sends us into a whirlwind of trying to find the appropriate place to spend that before it expires, because we don't want to look like that we're not providing services to the homeless. And so we're kind of caught in this catch-22 of getting the money out the door in a timely manner, and then having the proper services wrapped around. But I think we can take time to do that, and we will make the time. And I was really glad, Commissioner West, that you came forward and wanted to tackle this with staff. I do think we need to put some parameters around exactly what you want to do, because you say you want to do a lot of things, but I need to know specifically. We have Commissioner Savas in the queue, who I know has interest. But Gary, do you want to say something?
Yes, so certainly welcome this, and if there's more than one commissioners, you don't direct the work of staff, so you'd simply be sharing ideas with staff and bringing it back to this room, because the board makes decisions. So I just want to be really clear about that. I think you all understand that. You don't have liaisons to departments, so this is a simple issue that Commissioner West is asking about. I'm your liaison to departments, that's why you have an administrator. So you're simply asking for this single issue, which is totally fine by me, but that's just the boundaries I want to help create and make clear. We have an administrators housing task force that 2 commissioners used to sit on, and then they didn't, because there was more than 2 that wanted to. So is that the forum to do this? There's a lot of unanswered questions I have.
Oh,
I
that's
wanted
a
to
good idea.
accommodate what you're asking for.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to let Commissioner Savas talk.
Yeah, I support Commissioner West doing that. He certainly has a passion, has a lot of the energy. I would love to join him, not in maybe all of those areas, but particularly when it comes to how we, I'm going to use the word manage, not program, how we manage the county facilities for our homeless population. And I say that with the interest and background and research I've done for the last several years. And we honed in on that when we did the Veterans Village. And that's where we started that conversation. We had that conversation with other counties at AOC, with others, and did a lot of work. So I think I can bring something to the table on that. And again, not in the wide breadth of H3S, but in that particular arena. I'd love to work with you.
So-
Love to have the board support.
Yeah, so Paul and Ben, I would recommend that at least Ben, and Paul, it's up to your schedule, attend the Administrators Housing Task Force as a very beginning. Ben, I think you need to write down your ideas on what exactly it is you want to do. That needs to be defined in one small paragraph, okay? Bullet points, just clean and simple, for Gary to review and staff to review. I think I have a general idea.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of have a general idea where we want to go. I'm going to use two words, and I sound like a broken record. When it comes to housing the homelessness, we look at causation and we look at accountability. And I think we start with that. And that will lead us down the path where we want to go. It's very important, causation and accountability. So let's start with that. And we can only do what we can do.
Yep.
And we have hopefully a project coming on board. I know there are several others in the county that are becoming on board as we go forward. I know we're really ambitious and anxious to get this going.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other comments regarding this?
Yeah, and so this would be not all of H3.
No.
That's insane, right? Like, this would, to be specific, this would be dealing with the homeless issue.
That's what I just said.
Yep, just like you said, I want to confirm that is, we are on the
That's
same page.
What I just said,
Yeah.
and the homeless programming. Paul used management, I used programming,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, all righty. I will finish up the commissioner comments by saying tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. we have a swearing-in ceremony for newly elected and re-elected electeds in the county. Commissioner Savas, you will be there as a re-elected. Commissioner West, you will be as a new commissioner. We have a new county clerk, Catherine McMullen. We have a new tax assessor, Bronson Rueda. We have Brian Nava, who is re-elected, and we have Justice Judge
Karen Brisbane. Judge
Karen Brisbane, yes. I don't know why I forgot her name. Is that it, Gary?
Yes.
It'll be a very nice program. There will be some speeches. I don't know if there's a time limit on speeches or not. I don't know what the instructions were there, but I plan on attending. Hopefully, commissioners, we all can attend and cheer on our newly elected members to Clackamas County and wish them much success. That's all I have to say today. Seeing no further business before this board, we are adjourned.